Yo, how you doing?
I'm doing. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
Survey complete.
Cool. What's the last thing you did? Like event or debate or?
I think the last like major thing I did was that Hans review that you blew me out of the water on. Now I'm working on the aristocracy and the person who shall not be named.
We just say it. It's never going to end. So it doesn't matter.
Complete.
She's already like back. She was already back to me the same day, but now she's just been going off again. So it's whatever.
Yeah. Just because I think I should cover some more positive examples of like what I'm looking for in like people's approach to conversation. Like I know that one didn't necessarily end like with changing her mind or anything, but I think that Eris's approach to talking to people is kind of admirable and like worth looking at. But I also kind of want to look at the moderated conversation that Hans has, where he has like a chess timer or something, just to see how those work. Have you checked out any of those?
It's really hard for me to watch content, but I have watched part of it before because yeah, it's interesting. He's trying to do like a hardcore like this is going to be segmented and it's going to be a good talk and it's not going to be the death sports like battle royale fucking shit where everybody's like trying to kill each other doing it. Yeah.
Do you get sick of those, like that format at all?
It depends on what it is. Yeah, it depends on what it is, I guess. I don't know.
What does that mean?
I really enjoy being in scenarios where it's a lot of people that I disagree with that I get to deal with one at a time. So like one on like 4 or 5 or 6, especially if it's things that I'm really well versed in, that's a lot of fun for me. But being on panels where everybody's screaming at everybody or where it's like a 3-on-3 or whatever is far less fun for me. Yeah, I don't know.
Scientific.
Do you feel like it's dependent on who's involved in the talk, or is it more so dependent on like moderation or what?
Probably all of the above. The moderation part doesn't matter that much because a lot of these things go crazy anyway. And then in terms of who's involved, yeah, it could depend on that too. Like what kind of, yeah. The only thing, fuck, I feel like I've been attacking a lot lately. I'm not trying to attack them. People that are incredibly verbose are just the only frustrating people to deal with in that format. Some people, there's like, here's a rhetoric review if you want to do this. You can do this on Fnatic, but it's not just him, but some people do this, okay? So, here's something that I can say, okay? Education is important because it empowers children to be successful in the future, all right? When I say that, generally, everybody knows what I'm talking about, okay? Nobody will say a sentence like this on a panel. Instead, it'll be something like this. Education is important because it empowers children to be successful in the future. Like, children that get educated, it's really important because it helps them do things like get better jobs. And when you get like education, it's so important to get educated because you can go forth, you can make way more money when you grow up. It helps you like pay for more things. Like you've got access to like bigger salary ranges, and it's like really big. Like if you get kids that go to school, they can get jobs, and these jobs that they get are like so much better than they could otherwise, and they end up making so much more money. Like, people I notice, they'll say something and then they find like 15 ways to restate it. And it's like, shut the fuck up. We know what you said. You don't need to give 20 examples for everything you say. You don't have to find a way to restate what you said 15 times. Just fucking say your point and move to the next thing. And I noticed that in some conversations, there are people that do that. And it's like, they'll start talking and I could like literally just walk out of the room and come back in like 2 minutes. And I know everything you said already because you said all of it in the first 5 seconds. It feels like people remember, it feels like people think that if they talk more and more and more and more, it either reinforces their point or something, I guess. That's what the feeling I get is. Like if somebody asks you a question, you're like, okay, well then what do you think, how do you think then we should fix school whatever? And it's like, well, you'd have to take a multifaceted approach and target a lot of different areas of society to do it. Like nobody's comfortable giving just kind of like a shorter, concise answer because it feels like you're missing something or you're dumb or you've got to like do a flowery bullshit essay to like make it, yeah.
Now, do you think that that's their intent? Because when I'm thinking about somebody like Fnatic, it feels to me like, and this is like some psych Andy shit, so you probably won't like it, but it feels to me like he's really concerned that people aren't listening to him and that he has to feel like he's like completed and really given, like squeezed every ounce out of his brain of what he's trying to say before he can like move off of something. And that feels like just like a personal failing on his part. It doesn't seem to be strategic, but that might be wrong.
There's a quotation, it's called brevity is the soul of wit, okay? Being able to say things concisely in fewer words is so much more important than using like every huge word you know across 15 different analogies. There is something to be said for being concise. And using a whole bunch of extra flowery language and garbage or whatever, it's so bad. It's such a bad way of speaking. You don't communicate ideas clearly. People get lost in whatever it is you're trying to communicate. You end up straying from points like inadvertently. Like, oh God, ugh.
Yeah, and I feel like the brevity and the not using like inflated diction are two like separate issues, right?
It can be, yeah. I'm not saying that like using big words is bad, but I'm saying that like I don't care. Vosh does this a lot. You can tell that when Vosh is speaking, it always feels as though he's attempting to reach the farthest quadrants that are accessible to his mind in order to, in the most eloquent and verbose fashion possible, try to or attempt to display with stunning alacrity his capability to be both simultaneously capricious and also like it's just like when people talk like this, it sounds like you're trying to like so hard to like I don't know. Oh God, it just makes me cringe. I guess you can call it a style, but at the end of the day, I guess what I try to think is I have a lot of ideas in my head and I want to be able to communicate what it is I'm thinking. And if I'm having an argument, I want to be able to communicate whatever's necessary to convince you that whatever my argument is correct. And I don't see trying to like put on a show as serving that purpose. So when I argue with people to do that, it's frustrating because it feels like it's, I don't know, like you show up to like some anime fight and the dude has like a 20-minute power-up sequence, but then they end up like, you know, shooting like a little fireball and then they get killed in one shot. Like that's what it feels like. It's, oh God.
Yeah, it's definitely frustrating. And I think sometimes, and this happens at least like in my experience helping people with papers and stuff and doing tutoring, that we offload a lot of like personal failings onto style. So like that's why like I'm very specific in saying inflated diction, because it's like that's my understanding of the problem when people write is like, okay, you're using super duper flowery language and like archaic nonsense that nobody's gonna understand. You have to like cut back on that. And then the student will often be like, but I'm like demonstrating my understanding of the thing. I'm getting at a very specific word. It cannot be said in this other way. It's like, oh, okay, you have like a million little mental hurdles you have to get over there, and you have to realize that this is like a stylistic problem.
I blame teachers for this. I had so many bad teachers. I went to really good schools. I had so many bad teachers. There are so many horrible teachers out there. Most teachers are so bad at teaching. Oh my God. I only had one teacher that did this, and it was actually really important, and I really appreciated her for this. Setting like page counts or paragraph counts is a really fucking cancerous way of approaching the requirement for an essay. And I had one teacher that when she gave requirements for papers, what she would say is, you need to write an essay on this topic. And then if a kid was like, okay, well, how long does it need to be? She's like, you can make it as long as you want, but for an adequate explanation of what you're talking about, it should probably be about 2 or 3 pages, or you're probably going to need about 2 or 3 paragraphs. Those are the types of guidelines that she would give when it came to writing papers, and that mental approach of doing it actually made things feel so much better than like, I have to fill 3 fucking pages of bullshit. Because if you answered a question fully in an essay and she felt like you did it adequately, she'll never mark you off for it being too short. Word counts and page counts are just such an unbelievably garbage, cancerous way of approaching literally any writing project. Never in the history of fucking mankind needs there be a page count or a word count on explaining something. It should be like whatever you need to do to explain the idea. Oh God, I hate that.
Do you understand why that's there though?
Yes, it's there because it's a shortcut for garbage teachers that don't want to adequately equip somebody to answer a question. So instead you just put an arbitrary page count or paragraph count so that they're forced to like hopefully stumble into the appropriate response because they have to write so many words.
Well, I hate to be the contrarian, right? I love to be the contrarian. Who am I kidding? But I think it really, really helps a lot of students with like understanding what's expected of them in a paper. If you give them an open-ended like thing, you have some students that are going to completely shut down because they have no idea what's expected of them. And then you have other students who are going to like go way above and beyond and take way too much time to do that. And so to help both of those kinds of students, giving them some kind of like metric for success in that regard, or at least knowing how long the thing needs to be, can guide how much they're putting into the paper. That's why like sourcing requirements are going to be there, or page counts are going to be there, or word counts are going to be there, because it gives you a frame to work in. Like, oh, okay.
I don't mind having a framework. That's why I said, like, the teacher was like, you're probably going to need 2 or 3 pages. Or you probably need, this is probably like a 3-paragraph. I don't mind that. But what I don't like is that, like, I specifically remember this. Given a question, you're capable of adequately giving an answer in 1 or 2 pages, and then you get marked off because there was a page requirement. It was supposed to be 2 or 3 pages long. It's like, well, what the fuck? I answered the question. Like, what? Like, well, you could have, maybe you can provide more. It's like, okay, well, then ask me a different question. Like, it's just, I really hate teachers. I actually think most people are dog shit at teaching, teachers included, and it drives me fucking crazy. And I now when I look back more on, like, my education, and I feel like I understand teaching at an okay level, I think most teachers are just dog shit, especially when I think back to good teachers I've had. Oh my God, fuck. All right, I'm done, I'm sorry.
I mean, teachers can definitely be dog shit, and I think that this is one way that they could be bad, but I think it's also helpful to remember, like, they have a very unique job where it's like they're not like Socrates with the one kid and they're able to, like, I don't know, individually bring somebody up. They have to give requirements and they have to give assignments that, like, everybody or the majority of people can, like, understand and parse on their own, and that's what's, like, helpful about the requirements.
An alien empire.
Like,
yeah, it's tough. Being a teacher is a very, very difficult job, especially depending on your school. Sure.
Yeah. Just because you have to reach, like, all the kids in the class, and to reach all the kids in the class, these are, like, very easy ways to paint in the picture of every student's mind, like, what is expected of them. And it makes it easier when they go into tutoring later with somebody like me, because then I can be like, okay, so, like, it's like we have a frame for the car that's already built, and that constrains the space that we can, like, put all the pieces together. Like, okay, we only have this much space for this and this much space for this, and, like, it gives you just, like, a very basic outline that you can then fill in with everything that you need. Like, okay, well, if it's 6 pages, we probably need between, like, 6 and 10 sources, and we're going to have an intro paragraph and conclusion paragraph. So that's, like, about a page or a page and a half already taken up. And then you can, like, build everything else around that. It makes it a lot easier to, like, work with kids on improving their writing.
An alien empire wishes to communicate.
Or even adults, honestly.
Sure.
So, like, I understand why it can be frustrating, because you feel like, well, no, the assignment should more so be, like, the spirit of the assignment is to explain something or to go through a topic, and that shouldn't need, like, a required amount of space. It should take as long as it takes, but it's just not practical because most students are going to, they're going to want that.
And I don't know, maybe I'm actually a fucking super genius, or maybe I'm super retarded, and, like, there's just different ways that I learn, but it's something that drives me crazy with the vast majority of teaching and across almost all subjects, especially fucking math. And I even see this when I teach my own kid, or when I've talked to his teachers about doing math, is that it feels like people spend so little time on concepts and instead, like, figure out, like, and they figure out instead, like, how do you like do all the problems? Here's like a really good example of this. And I don't think, like, Nathan scores decently in school. It's not like I don't think he's especially bad at this, or maybe he is especially bad at this. But, like, here's something that's frustrating. When I watch Nathan, or sometimes other kids, when I watch kids that will do problems in math, like, story problems, right? Let's say that it'll be like, because right now they're doing, like, division with remainder shit. It'll be like, Jonathan wants to put 516 toys in boxes, and every box can hold 25 toys. How many boxes does Jonathan need, right? If I ask him to, like, restate this, he can't do it. But he can do, like, okay, it's 512 divided by this, and then the remainder, and then you round up 1. But I'm like, okay, but, like, what does that mean? Why are you doing this? Like, why? What do these numbers represent? It's like, well, I don't know. You do 5. So, like, he can, like, he can set up, like, the formula, but it's like, okay, but what the fuck are you actually solving? And I noticed that, like, even through most of my school, when I think back, because there are some concepts that when I learn them in school, I'm like, I don't understand this at all. But then if I revisit them at a later grade, or now in my real life, if I revisit it, I'm like, oh my God, this makes so much sense. I remember I ranted once on stream about significant figures once, where it seemed so arbitrary and stupid to me in school. And I memorized the rules and I got it right. But later in life, when I revisited that, like, in my mid-20s, I'm like, oh, significant figures. Actually, this 100% makes sense. Of course, there's a difference between 1 and 1.00. 0. I understand that 1,000,000% now, but like, no, the teacher's inabilities to like explain concepts or get kids to understand concepts and instead force like this rote memorization of formula shit. I don't know. I think it's really bad. And especially after last night, I'm talking to so many people that graduate with like bachelor degrees that don't remember anything that they learned in school. And I'm like, what the fuck did you do for 4 years? I don't understand. Yeah.
Well, I think it's like context dependent as well. So like setting aside the, you know, the marks that the teachers have to hit, which is going to like lead to the way that they teach the classes, and then the limitations with like, okay, you're teaching a classroom full of like normal people, and to reach as many of those normal people as possible, like we said before, there are easier ways of doing that. And definitely one of them for math is going to be just teaching the concepts like in how they're going to apply on tests and stuff, because most students are not going to care about like where can this actually be used. They're going to care more about like how am I going to pass the test with this information, or what is the test going to look like. Like it's just really tough because like kids have to be bought in, or even adults have to be bought into the idea they're going to use this info. And even if you get them bought in at that level and they learn about the concept itself, if contextually it's like not important for the rest of their degree, or they don't use it, or they misuse it, which is even worse, then the way that they're going to remember that information is really fucked up, right? And
yeah, I feel like then something has to change with obviously everybody says it, right? Somebody has to change with like the way that we teach or whatever then, or what we teach, because like why the fuck why waste the time on shit that's not going to, if you're gonna forget it and just whatever, you know, like spend the time teaching kids how to do taxes or fucking home ec or about credit cards or something that's like so much more relevant and more fruitful to your life than something that you're expected to completely fucking forget, you know, 20 seconds after stepping out of your graduating class.
I definitely agree. It's just it's tough to change all that stuff. And in my experience, at least personally, like writing graduate level stuff for education students, like they're learning a lot of like old and outdated like approaches from different fields. So they're learning old and outdated like mathematics, they're learning old and outdated like psych concepts, they're learning old and outdated like teaching methods as a result. And this is like a bigger problem with the field that I see, which makes everything else that comes from that like really, really difficult to like fix or change.
Anomaly found.
Plus, like, again, you run into that problem of like, okay, so if I get all these concepts and stuff, like, it may be difficult to teach all of the kids in the class this stuff, and to like figure out a way of like creating a curriculum that everybody can follow and understand. And it's just going to benefit like particular students over other students, and it makes it more difficult to teach the whole class. But I mean, if that had started from the very beginning, that we work with like really practical problems and word problems as opposed to like rote memorization and formulas, then, you know, everybody would do a lot better. But like, you can't shaft some student in college like that because they learned everything by formulas and by the rote writing out of everything, and then they're just going to be fucked if they get to college and it's all based on word problems and concepts.
Yeah. I think the thing that got me the most triggered on this that I had ever had been, because I hadn't really thought about it much, was when people started making videos about Common Core math, and all the parental pushback towards it. And after watching that, I was pretty convinced, like, oh, okay, we're never going to change education because parents don't want their kids to learn in ways that they didn't learn. Because, yeah. I think most of what I say, I think I have just a really negative impression of how a lot of math is taught, or how a lot of kids learn math. It maybe is more so than like social studies, because for some stuff you just have to do memorization. But yeah, I don't know. The Common Core stuff is something that triggered the fuck out of me with like how parents, because I wonder in terms of like, can we change the way that we teach kids these things? But like, if you do it differently than how parents learned it, then all the parents rebel and like lose their fucking mind too. So yeah. So I think there's a lot of parts of the system that are kind of incentivized to do things a certain way.
And at least when I would tutor math, like you're always starting with the concept and the equation part of it. So they have to learn how to actually do the math first and what that looks like, and have practice and reflexes for like, all right, when you're in this situation, you have these variables and they're arranged in this way. These are the formulas that you need to reach for it. And you need to learn how to like solve those without errors. And that part of it takes so long that by the time you're able to go, okay, you feel comfortable enough with this concept that I'm going to show you like how it is practically used, or how you could take like raw input in the form of like a word question.
It's just like, it wasn't until like for math especially, there's so much like theory into the numbers. It wasn't until I started taking calc classes that I finally had to like write papers with like math, or had these concepts explained more. It felt like before that, even learning all the algebra and like whatever geometry, whatever fucking shit you learn, you don't actually this is super specific in my education. Maybe it's different, but like it would just be cooler if people had a better understanding of what are these numbers, or like what's happening with this, or what does this mean, like what does it mean when you do this or that. It didn't feel like until I got to calculus that they finally started to have an explanation of like, oh, okay, well, what is an instantaneous rate of change, or what does it mean to integrate something, or what is when functions cross, what does this mean? Because I feel like having better understandings of those things, even at like a really fundamental level, because somehow I lucked into that understanding early on in age, and lucking into that early on in age helped me through so much math, because I sucked at studying and doing anything, but I had like an okay understanding of like the concept of the numbers. Like if I talk to, like here's something that blows my mind. I can impress so many people when I'm at a restaurant, and I've had multiple people come to this because I know how to like do a 20% tip in my head. And like when I hear so many people like get surprised at that, it's like it's literally just 2 times the number, and then you move like a decimal point over a few times. This is like some of the most basic math I can think of. But like people have no idea like how any of the numbers relate to like anything. And yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm just like rambling about random shit. I really don't. I'm getting like super salty at how many educated people I deal with that like are missing a lot of basic concepts. Like, what the fuck is happening? Yeah.
My understanding is that Common Core is getting at a lot of these problems that you're talking about, and helping kids to like understand the concepts in more free-form ways so that they could apply it in more situations. So I think that's getting at the problem that you're describing, right?
Yeah, but the parents lose their mind when they watch people. Yeah, it was like a huge, I don't know if it still is a thing now, but I remember like on Facebook and shit like 10 years ago, like they always post like, this is how they want our kids to do math in school. And there's like all these YouTube videos and stupid shit. And it's like, all right.
Yeah, there's always going to be that pushback, and for like a number of reasons, right? Like if you're frustrated as fuck by your kid's homework, you never learn the math this way, and you personally can't like conceptualize it in the ways that it's being described, that's frustrating to you. And if they had just worded it in the way of like, I can't help my kid with their homework, there needs to be some kind of like supplemental that's going home to like help adults that had learned this the traditional way to like engage with it, then I would be okay with it. But that's not the way they're wording it.
I think there's an inbuilt thing of like, I suffered through this, therefore you should suffer as well. I think that is like a pretty inbuilt thing to a lot of stuff, like with hazing, or like why people don't change certain systems that suck. I think there's like this like bought in, like you've made it, you're like, well, I had to deal with this, so you got to deal with it too. Like I think people have that attitude. I don't know why, but
yeah, that might be a part of it as well. I don't know. I like, I'm Mr. Understanding, so I try to get where the parents are coming from, and I can kind of understand like, oh, there's probably like a ton of good reasons for being against this, but I just think they miss out on what the purpose of this is and how it's meant to teach the kids to be more like flexible with stuff. Like it's so cool talking to kids nowadays that are learning the math this way, because you get some like really brilliant kids that can like even find intuitive solutions to problems that are using concepts they had learned before that are not being tested. Like, oh, okay, you've like intuited that you can use a different way of solving this, and you're using that way. But at the same time, that also creates some frustration, because it's like, okay, well now I need to create a very specific kind of problem that's specifically going to test like exactly what I'm looking for, so that you can't use something else to solve it. And like that can be frustrating for a teacher as well, and is part of like what makes that more difficult as an approach. But I mean, in real life, it wouldn't matter. Like whatever gets you the proper solution, it wouldn't matter if it's like something that we're learning now or we learned before.
Maybe.
Construction complete.
I don't know. Actually, I disagree with that a lot. But, I don't know.
Oh, why so?
I'm very big on the process. I think the process is way more important than the answer. Because you can do especially math. You can do a lot of math in a really stupid way. But this is probably true for solving most things in life. Well, it's definitely true for programming. Like, you can definitely get to like answers that work, that are far from ideal, or that are way more time consuming than they need to be. And it's probably important to not fall into those traps, I would say.
Yeah. And I think for programming in specific, especially if you're like a computer science major, there are reasons that you need to learn the different approaches to problems because they don't scale. But I think for like students that are learning math and stuff like that, like I think in an adult level, they're going to default to whatever they understand the best later on. And sometimes what's best in that regard is not going to be whatever they learn that is like hypothetically the quickest way of solving it, because if hypothetically the quickest way of solving it has like an error rate of like 20%, they fuck it up 20% of the time, it's probably better they use the method that like takes a bit longer, or for them is like unreasonably faster because it just clicks for their brain. So that's where I'm like, I have a tough time like arguing.
It's just hard because like, I guess it feels like because the reason why things take so long is because you don't have like the underlying like conceptual understanding of the thing. So then certain things are going to like take longer. I wish I could think of like an example. Like my guess is that I'm gonna make a big guess here. If you were to give most Americans like a 15-second time limit and have them do like 7 times like 34, if they weren't allowed to write it out and do like the thing with the lines or whatever, they wouldn't be able to do it, because the way that a lot of Americans would try to do 7 times 34 is they would think like, okay, 7 times 34 is 3468. They'd either try to count it that way, or they'd try to do like 34 times 7 is 4 times 7 is 28, so you have to put the 2 up there, rather than just like, okay, 34 times 7 is just 30 times 7 plus 4 times 7. Rather than being able to break apart like the 10s and the 1s and to just do it like you would like an algebra or whatever, they wouldn't have like that conceptual foundation. So the way that they default, like when I see people write out like multiplication like this and do shit like this, when it's stuff that you should be able to just break apart like these two numbers and do it, that's what I say when I like, yeah, I know that there are some methods that are simpler, but the only reason those methods are easier is because you never had like the conceptual foundation to understand the numbers. You just like memorized all the formulas and shit, or your times tables.
But getting back to like the way that people learned, people didn't learn how to do like chunking and mental math that way, at least that are like your age or my age. They learned how to do it writing it out. Whereas like kids nowadays, they're learning exactly what you're talking about. I'm pretty sure that Common Core teaches them to chunk it out like that, which I think is better. But I think that comes down to the way that they were educated. It's tough to expect them to have like intuited this way better system when that's not what they were explicitly taught in school. Like, I get it can be frustrating to see like, bro, there's a way easier way of doing this, why are you still doing it that way? But it's like, well, you intuited that, they weren't taught that. Like, I would be more frustrated if like a kid that's growing up nowadays continued to do the writing it out method, because it's like, well, you learned it the other way, why are you doing that?
I mean, if they actually do learn that, that's really cool. Like I said, the thing that set me off a long time ago, I think we watched these on stream, is that like there were people showing like the Common Core way on like YouTube. I remember these were Facebook videos way back in the day, and it would show you like, oh, well, in a Common Core way to solve a problem, and then like some smug parent would be like, well, here's how we solved it, and they would do it way faster, and it was faster for them to do it. But the reason why it was faster was because the video would be breaking down like a whole concept of giving you understand the numbers, and then the parents would just write out like the multiplication thing, and they'd be so smug, and they'd be like, this is how we learn it, it's way faster than this. But yeah.
That's pretty dumb. Because like what would be a more reasonable test is to do something like what you just said, give us like a weird 2-digit number or even a 3-digit number, and then ask them to solve it without like writing things down. Like, okay, do that in your head. And then they can't. What do you think about the argument that because we have smartphones nowadays, like not much of this is important anymore?
I mean, like certain things aren't important, but that should just mean that you're learning more advanced things, right?
Situation log updated.
And then there's always going to be like some level of like, you need some working familiarity with like your times tables. You can't get around that, right? Because you're not going to break out a calculator every single time you need to do like simple multiplication or division or something. But you don't, obviously you don't have to learn like long division hardcore or something dumb like that at least, right?
Yeah.
Or I mean, you should learn it so you understand the concept, but
it's not as practical. Even that, there's some pretty interesting Common Core solutions to like
System
even long
survey
division that I
complete.
found really interesting to look at. Like,
Anomaly.
oh, okay. Like, because we're really limited by the way that we learned this in school. So even something like long division, we're like, well, of course we're going to put long division in a box to the left because that's kind of, you know, always going to be difficult. But not necessarily. That's just because we learned it in a really convoluted way. But the ways that they're teaching math now, I always appreciate when I like get somebody in tutoring with that. There's the initial frustration of like, what the fuck? Can you please show me your notes or your book or like explain it to me the way your teacher explained it to you? Because I have no idea what the fuck you're doing here. But then once it clicks, like once I understand, oh, okay, that's why you're doing it like that, because you can do it in your head, or like, oh, that's why you're doing like that because you're chunking the problem out. Like, then when everything clicks and it's explained well, then I see the benefit of it.
yeah.
But then you have this like bridge between the teachers and their courses and the parents is the student, and the student is like one of the worst bridges you could have between these two things. So if they go home, they don't understand it, and they explain this convoluted way in the shittiest way possible because they don't understand it, then of course their parent is going to be like equally frustrated and just default to the way that they learned it, right? And
And then
I
the
think that's
parent
part
will
of the problem.
reinforce to the kid that's like, oh yeah, this is really hard, like this is bullshit, like yeah, and then the student feels like even more empowered.
Yeah. But like I've found, and this is really funny, that sometimes like in tutoring I'll teach the kid the way that I had learned it, and despite the fact that the way that I taught them, they understand it, they see the benefit in the way that their teacher taught it to them sometimes, and they'll be like, okay, like I understand you can do it this way, but I feel like if I were to learn it the way the teacher's telling me, that would be a better way to understand it. Like they intuit this stuff as well, and it's like, I don't know, I'm really proud of kids. Like I think they're really smart. They just like need stuff explained to them in a way that they can understand, and then once they're there, once they understand it, it's like crazy. They can like take off from there. Has Nathan brought home any stuff that like you had a difficult time understanding?
No, but I was with him mainly for like first and second grade, and now he's in fifth grade. In the first and second grade, it was obviously fundamental enough that there's not going to be a big change. Yeah. Usually if I visit, sometimes if he's having trouble in something, we'll do a little bit of studying. So like the last time I was with him, we did some math homework. But yeah.
Do you get frustrated with him, or do you have like a lot of patience?
I'm a very patient person, but I get frustrated when I see him sometimes.
What?
He has like he's like a photocopy of me, and it's just so irritating. Because if I make him, will fuck up so much work. But if I make him sit down and like threaten to kill him in a video game, or like you have to do this, or we're not going to watch a movie, we're not going to do anything. If I sit him down and make him do shit, he'll do it and he'll get the right answers. But it's so hard to keep him focused on it, and he hates going through problems, and he gets like really like lazy and just starts writing random shit. And it's like, bro, slow the fuck down, chill out, and let's fucking solve a problem. Like you can do this. Why are you fucking? But he's a kid, so he doesn't understand. He doesn't give a fuck, right? Like how am I supposed to say like you're gonna ruin your life if you don't do school? Like he just wants to play Fortnite, you know?
Yeah.
But I was the same way. I was the same way too, though. Like I would like cry and I would cry at home if my math homework was too long. I would actually throw tantrums because like I don't want to do this. Like if I would have just did the homework, it would have been easier than making a deal out of it. I don't know. I was so horrible when it came to homework. Jesus.
Does he have like a concept of what you do for work?
A little. No, yeah, actually a lot. A lot of kids do, because a lot of kids want to grow up and be like YouTubers and shit today. Yeah.
So does he ever pull the card of like, I'm not going to use this if I like do what you do, and I wish I could just do Fortnite and be funny and that kind of stuff?
No, he's kind of joked about it, but I've always told him like he's not going to do any of that shit until he graduates from college or anything.
Oh, okay. like, does he have any like serious desires at this point to be a personality or to do that kind of stuff?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Like the last time I'm trying to be a little bit more careful with it too, because last time he was like, oh, we should stream. He's like, no, hold on. I have you for like 2 days. I'm not going to fucking stream with you. I want to hang out. What the fuck?
Oh, that's kind of cute though, that he likes your job that much.
Yeah. Yeah, like he's super excited. Like when Melina shows up, he's like, oh, let's stream. I want to do that or whatever. But I think that it's probably an intoxicating feeling to when you're still a kid. I don't know if you've ever spent a lot of time around babies, but like one of the most fun things for babies is like mirroring their reactions. They go fucking crazy. They love it. Being like really reflective with like with a child like makes them go crazy. They laugh and they have a lot of fun and shit. And I imagine that same feeling like probably keeps up as you know any type of attention you're getting and like the reflectiveness from other people. Like imagine being like 10 years old and you can have thousands of people like thinking your jokes are funny and shit. It's probably like a really big ego hit or like a nice socialization thing, you know?
Would you agree that that continues on into adulthood? I feel like adults still have this.
A little bit, but I think you can probably be a little bit more moderated on it or a little bit more aware, hopefully. Like, I think I consider myself to be pretty intelligent. I think if I would have started streaming at 18, I think I would be significantly more fucking stupid. Because I had a way bigger ego as a teenager. Massive ego. And if I would have gotten all the social reinforcement as a teenager rather than somebody that had mellowed out a bit, worked some jobs, had some shit happen, and then like was like 21 I think when I started streaming, or 22, right? If that wouldn't have happened first, I don't know if I would have gotten locked in at a way more toxic like cycle of thoughts when I was a teenager streaming.
Do you ever feel like it's hampered your growth now, like you were locked in at you know, maybe at a similar rate, or it's like kind of kneecapped some of your personal growth, or not really?
No, I think I spent a lot of time, honestly, in my late teens and then even in my early 20s, like thinking about like introspection and like what does it mean to be aware of myself, and like how can I tell if I'm making mistakes, or what is like I think combined with like the type of life I've had, because like from 16 onwards, if I want to do something, I have to do it myself. Like nobody's gonna help me. I'm not gonna get any outside bullshit. So like that type of attitude of like, okay, well, if there's a problem, I have to figure it out, otherwise it's all over. So that constant like pressure to move forward, and then the constant drive to like evaluate my own behavior to make sure that I'm like making improvements and moving forward, because I'm not getting like this external validation from like parents or anything else to check. I think kind of pushed me into being, hopefully, what I would hope is like relatively introspective, or more so maybe than most people, to try to figure that out. I think that like I can decently show for that in terms of like comparing like my community and how much like self-obsession there is within my community versus like others. Like I feel like most other people's communities are a lot more circle jerky than mine. Obviously mine can be for topics for sure, but I think I get like an adequate amount of pushback from my fans over stuff that they disagree with, which I enjoy. That's a good thing for me, or I enjoy that aspect of it.
Yeah, yours is this interesting mix of like dick jerking and like taking every opportunity to shit on you. They seem to really like both.
Yeah, it just depends.
I see that you're taking fitness a little bit more seriously. What inspired that?
Honest to God, it was just really, really, really good gyms in Sweden. I'm a little bit worried being back now. Hopefully they're still okay, but walking into a gym and there being like 10 racks and like infinite numbers and assortments of like plates and shit is actually such a nice feeling. But yeah, go back tomorrow here, so we'll see.
What constitutes a good gym for you?
Power racks. It's like the most important thing in a gym is having racks available with lots of weight. So like for instance, on this gym, there are I bought my own 5-pound plates and 2.5-pound plates, and I carry them with me to the gym because you can't find them at this gym. You've got to hunt all over the fucking gym for them to find them. So I carried my own with me to fucking load up my bar and shit. It's so irritating. And then having only like one rack available, one power rack and one squat rack, means that if somebody is there and they're not like if like 1 or 2 people are using it, then you're going to be standing around for 30 minutes, or you have to shuffle around your workout, and depending on what you're doing, you don't want to do that. So it's so annoying. I hate having to go to the gym and like waiting. It's so fucking irritating. What kind of shit gym are you going to? Every fucking gym in the US, motherfucker. Gyms in the US are garbage. Planet Fitness is trash. 24 Hour is fucking trash. Maybe if you go to like an Equinox, because I'm thinking about like looking into something nicer. But like just Americans don't do like barbell lifts in the US. It's just not an American thing. We do machines and fucking jerk off and eat pizza, I guess. it seemed like the lifting culture, at least in Sweden and the Netherlands, was like way more. I've never seen so many people doing like Olympic lifts or like so many racks in like every gym or whatever that I have like in the Netherlands and Sweden.
Huh. Well, given that you're a wealthy dude, I guess it's no problem to just buy a set and have it at home, right?
It's an apartment. I don't know if it's safe to like deadlift on like an apartment floor or if you'll fuck shit up. And then it's kind of hard to get like, if there is some like nice stuff, like having a cable machine is really nice. I don't know how much those weigh or how easy or bad that is to set up. It's nice to be able to go to a gym. I think it's good.
Yeah, I didn't even think about your poor neighbors lifting and dropping weights and stuff. They probably wouldn't like that either.
A new planetary base.
You don't ever think about getting a house?
I mean, I had a power rack and a house in Omaha. I mean, I guess I technically still have it, but I don't know if I'd want to buy a house because I don't know where I'm going to stay or be. And then renting them are really expensive for just me, but maybe when we go to Miami.
Is that going to be a factor in the next place you pick, maybe, to have like a ground floor spot where you could do all that stuff, or not really?
I don't mind going to a gym. I don't mind like walking. I think it's okay. Like it gets me out of the house. I get some fresh air. I get some vitamin D, some sunlight. It's good to just walk. Like I like that. I like the concept of going to a gym. It's fine for me.
Does Melina have these same problems? Because I see that she goes to the gym a lot, it seems like.
Well, she's in Europe and it's really fucking nice over there. Although she'll do a lot of other stuff too. She's not like as like rigid or set like in her program or whatever. Like I have like this is what I do on 1A, this is what I do on 2A, this is what I do on 1B, this is what I do on 2B. Like if I can't do like the lifts that I need to do, it fucks with me and it makes me pissed off.
There's this really, really cool app. I don't know if you've heard about it, that you can put into the app that like, hey, this machine is occupied right now, and it will give you an alternative that will work the same muscle group. That way you don't have to be frustrated like that.
Yeah, I mean, like, I should know most of these. Like, if the cable fly machine is not available, you could technically do dumbbell flies. Or, you know, if the rack is available, you can do like a standing overhead press instead of like an overhead press. Like there are substitutions, but it's still a little different. It's just an autism thing. Like if I'm working on a certain lift with a certain range of motion in either machine or with dumbbells, I want to do that every time because it's the easiest way to see progress. Like if I do like a certain, like let's say for instance you're doing cable flies. If I do that shit, for 4 weeks, if I do this shit over like 8 lifts or 20 lifts or whatever, I know what the weight is. I know what my reps are. I know everything about it. If like one day I need to go to the gym and I need to do like dumbbell flies, like I don't know what it is, so I'm gonna spend half the workout like fucking warming up to the right weight, and then I've probably like got myself too tired to even do enough working sets at like with enough rep, and it's just a waste of a workout. It's almost not even like doing that exercise. I don't know, it's just annoying.
Not to be ableist, but it does seem like specifically like an autismo thing, like because you had mentioned earlier, or at least I think you did, that like the whole point for you is to track everything and see progress week to week. Whereas I feel like if you were to just zoom out, it wouldn't make a big difference if 1 week you just didn't get to use the machine, because next week the machine will likely be open, and then you'll know like how much you progressed, and then
yeah,
once
probably
you're
that's
like
almost
20 weeks in.
Absolutely true. That's why people will like theory craft like the perfect workout sessions, and they'll make fun of people that go to the gym and do like random stupid shit because they're not like doing it optimally. But if you go to the gym and you do random stupid shit for 2 or 3 years, you're going to look way better than somebody that theory crafted the perfect workout, went for 2 weeks and quit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even if you cared about like the perfect thing and you really wanted to see this progress, you'll be able to see it 20 weeks in. It won't matter if 1 or 2 weeks you just didn't get the machine.
Yeah, of course.
Because I'm not sure if you're in it to like look different or whatever, or be physically fit. You seem to be very interested in like personal progress, right?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Is it intimidating having a girlfriend who's so much more physically fit and able?
No, not at all. I don't think so. I think people that compare themselves like that are super cringe. Melina does it even, and it really irritates me when I have very little patience for conversations when people do that. It's something I need to work on. The only person I ever compare myself in life to is where I was prior to this, and I need to be making improvements over that. And as long as I'm doing that, I'm really happy. As soon as you start comparing yourself to other people, you're going down a road of thought that is so unimaginably fucking toxic and cancerous to you, you might as well just end it all, because whatever you're thinking is going to fail. Whatever you want to do is never going to be enough. Whatever your dreams and hopes are is always going to suck compared to who you're comparing to. Like, I think People that like fixate goals and they try to compare themselves to other people rather than where they were prior to that are always setting themselves up for failure. That's a really harsh way of stating it. I'm sorry. But like people will ask like, or conversations like Melina or whatever, she's like, oh, like, I don't know if I'm doing good enough compared to like this person. And it's like, why the fuck do you care? You're not that person. Who the fuck cares about that person? Like, just work on yourself. So no, Melina's super strong. I think that's really cool. That's fine. It motivates me to get out and do more too. So.
Well, I think that's the thing right there, which you just said. Like, if it motivates you to get out there and do more, like, I understand when you zoom in on it, maybe it's a bit convoluted the way that people get there. But I think if it's inspiration to get you to go out and do more or work harder, I think that's like a net positive thing, right? Like,
yeah, for sure. Or I guess it's, I mean, like, so technically, if I go back, if you phrase it differently, you're kind of right. I'm a very competitive person. So like, if Melina is able to, like, let's say that we're able to go out and do certain things and I end up not being able to participate because I don't have that level of physical fitness, that's like a motivation for me. Like, wait, hold on, I don't want to get like left behind here, right? Like, I'm relatively competitive when it comes to like that. So like, yeah, that can be a drive for sure. But like, if she is like ahead of me in fitness or whatever, I don't feel like bad, like, oh god, like, oh no, she's stronger than me. It's like, oh, it's more like, oh shit, like she's stronger than me, like I should be able to like climb to this level, or I should like keep pushing past like where I am now or whatever.
Yeah, like I definitely think for some people it manifests in like a negative way, or they're going for something that's like unachievable. But I think for a lot of people that stick with it and are healthy about it, it's like super positive. Like, I don't know, for me, like seeing some streamers that take that stuff seriously, like I'm really important, and his workout regime, like that makes me want to do it more. And I think when I get back, I'll try to network with more people and go to the gym with them and learn about their workouts and stuff like that, because I don't know, seeing other people do it makes it feel more achievable for me.
Sure. Yeah.
Do you have a problem with people that are like super political but have dumb fuck positions that are close to you?
It depends on the type of relationship we have. Like, if it's like a casual sexual relationship, I don't care. But if it's like somebody that I'm going to be like having political discussions with, then I probably do care, right? It totally depends on like the type of relationship.
Are you generally able to steer clear of political discussions with the people you're sexually involved with?
It depends on the types of conversations we have. I don't know. I've lost hookup partners over like different types of arguments, so I don't know. It just depends on what, I don't know. That's like a super variable question.
After the whole Anna thing, are you being more careful about like looking for signs in people that you're engaging with, or being more careful with streamer people, or like what is the takeaway from that?
I already do a lot of vetting. Like, people meme as much as they want, but like I had a lot of like successful hookups. It's not like this is a one in a however many thing. Like, I don't really run into stuff like this. But I also don't have much experience, like first-hand experience dealing with like borderline people. Like, that's a really rare thing. I've only known like 2 borderline people in my life, and I haven't had romantic attachments to them. So
because I'm putting 100%.
I'll probably, I don't know how you could avoid something like that. I'm not sure, because their ability to like flip a switch is so crazy to me. I don't know. In some ways, it makes it better to only deal with like more popular streamers or something, because they have something to lose, and they won't be like as insane about it. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Would it be ableist to discriminate against borderline people in your dating life, or no?
No, of course not. You should probably exercise a healthy amount of. You should exercise a ton of discrimination in your dating life in terms of like people that you can handle or should like be hooking up with or dating or whatever, for sure.
I don't feel like I'm very woke on all that stuff, and I'm always worried if like these different preferences for like kinds of people, whether it's because of like the way that you can interact with them or dating them or whatever. Like I always wonder if there's some like discrimination that's like not okay there that's going on.
No, I think that like dealing with people with mental illness is or different personality disorders or whatever, I mean, like, I'm not saying you should never do it. That's totally like a personal call. You have to figure out like if you can handle that type of thing, because there's going to be a lot of added difficulty to those types of relationships, and it's up to any individual to figure out whether they can or can't handle it.
How much do you feel like it's okay to like accommodate for somebody with the social anxiety?
It's up to you to figure. Well, from your perspective or from their perspective?
Like you moderating behavior for them.
I guess like there's 2 things to consider. Is that one, it's up to you to figure out how much you can handle personally. It's not up to another person to make that
project
decision
complete.
For you.
System survey complete.
But then, like, in a more general sense of, like, you know, basic, like, psychology treatment, therapy, or whatever, generally, you want to make the minimum number of accommodations possible, because the more accommodations you make for a person, or the more accommodations a person seeks, the less likely they are to overcome or get better on some particular thing they have. Typically, when somebody's in therapy for, like, a certain, like, something they're trying to fix, you try to be as the fewest accommodations as possible so that they, like, get better, basically. If that makes sense.
If they're not seeking help and stuff, is it reasonable to be frustrated with that? Like,
yeah, absolutely. You dump them or move on. If they're not going to help themselves, they're never going to get help. So fuck it. Don't sync with that shit.
Fair enough. Yeah, anxiety is a tough one, in my opinion. I don't know, because it's like things you say will be construed in ways that you definitely couldn't even be, like, reasonably expected to have, like, seen. Like, oh fuck, you took that way. Like, I can't even predict, like, how you're gonna take things. So, like, I don't know if I'm gonna hurt you by saying, like, things that I think are innocuous, and, like, I don't want to have to constantly be, like, thinking over, like, every aspect of my language when I'm with you. Like, I feel like that one in particular puts a burden on me that I'm starting to feel, like, uncomfortable about.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, like I said, it's up to you. You have to figure out, like, what is your comfort level basically with
so I'm going to make a little, like, follow-up video about the talk that we had and how I'm, like, correcting some of the things I'm doing in reviews. Is there any other stuff that you feel like I fuck up, or even better, like, solutions you could offer for, like, problems you see in the reviews that you would want to share?
I don't know, not generally. I think your better bet there would probably be, like, surveying your audience and then seeing if you get, like, some consistent feedback over and over again.
Okay, because the day that we talked, I did that, and I went through your Reddit. Your Reddit is a goldmine of very negative criticism.
Yeah, the problem is that, like, as soon as people have identified one thing that they don't like, people just have this super binary view of people, and it's so fucking annoying that it's like, oh, like, was Booksmarts wrong on this, like, review or whatever? No. He's a clout-chasing, disgusting fuck who's become an anti-fucking loser hater that's got a huge fucking ego that just can't, and it's like, Jesus fucking Christ. Like, yeah, I don't know. That's a really annoying facet of everything. I don't know how to deal with that. Everybody does this in the world. Like, all groups of people do this. It's irritating as fuck.
Yeah, but it's easier to write off the ones that I've, like, purposefully fixed. Like, if somebody's like, this guy has such a bias against Vosh, and it's, like, nauseating and blah blah blah, like, yeah, I preface most of the stuff I say about the dude with that. So I mean, if you're still upset after that, there's not much else I can do. Like, I don't know, I overcorrect for that shit so much that I really don't feel bad if somebody points it out, like, because I'm working on it. But other stuff like arrogance and whatever, it's like, yeah, you know what, I'm much more, like, confident in things that I'm saying, and perhaps overconfident compared to when I started. So that's something that I can, like, work with, you know. So I don't know, navigating that has been easier. But like, I think addressing more of, like, the logic of arguments is something that I want to work on, that you seem to be very focused on. Sometimes the detriment of other stuff I find important, but I think that, like, some focus in that regard is going to be helpful as well.
Sure.
Our ships have been made
like, when you're looking at a debate or you're trying to, like, evaluate who's doing better, what are the metrics that you're using for that?
Just depends on what I'm talking about.
System survey.
I'm usually talking about two different things. I'll usually say, like, oh, I think this sounds good, or I think, oh, this looks good. And then sometimes I'll be like, oh, this argument is good, or this argument is... Usually I, like, specify what I'm talking about. Like, I might say something, oh, like, this point is actually, like, completely incorrect, but it sounds really good here, and I think it's working really well in the argument. It just, yeah, I usually try to analyze it from, like, this is how I think outside people see it, and then I'll talk about, like, the logic of, you know, this is a good argument, this is a bad argument, this is factually correct or incorrect or whatever, depending on what I hear.
What's your personal definition for bad faith, and how do you, like, identify that or draw that line finally in people?
It's very rare that I'll, like, actually feel like this person is engaging in bad faith. But for me, like, bad faith is when, like, you've been given more than adequate, like, ability or more than ample opportunity to understand that you're incorrect about something, but you aren't doing it because you're either too married to your position or you hate me too much to budge on it. And so then at that point, the reason why it's important to identify somebody as bad faith is like, okay, there's no point in continuing this conversation. Like, it's not going to happen any further. Like, do you want to, like, let's fuck off. A really good example of this would be, and then also it helps you understand like a person's motivations, the types of arguments they're making, how you counter those arguments too. So I had a conversation with Denims where Denims made an accusation at me that I thought that the only way a company could return value to a shareholder was through either stock buybacks or like capital gains. I don't remember, something like that. Whatever she said it was obviously wrong, and I knew in the debate at the time that that's not what I was saying. Professor Wolf knew that I wasn't saying that, but for some reason she was hung up on this, and like she even went so far as to say like, oh, like I'll suck you off next TwitchCon if this is actually the case. And it's like, okay, you're being like really, like this is so obviously you're so wrong. And then like I think we went forward 5 more minutes into the conversation, and then it was either Wolf or me said something. It was like, oh look, I'm absolutely right. And then she like twisted and contorted so hard, and it's like, oh no, like I genuinely think, but like what she was accusing me of believing was just so stupid. Like I would have to know so little about what I'm talking about for her to point to actually be correct. And it was just like, as soon as I saw that, I was like, okay, this is, you're operating in bad faith. You don't actually care what the argument is or isn't. You're just like married like a motherfucker to your particular idea, and there's no way I can ever talk you out of it.
And are there any like borderline cases you can think of where you're like, fuck, I don't know if this person is being bad faith or if there's some other explanation for it?
No, if it's borderline, I just don't assume, because as soon as you write someone up as bad faith, you're like, the argument is done, and it's just not. It's usually hard to guess people's motivations and whether they're actually being bad faith, and it's just not productive to do that. So it's better to just be like, oh, like, you know, maybe we're just not connecting or something. I try to be pretty charitable there.
It's probably a smarter way of handling it.
It's kind of like assuming like when people are talking about like, oh, this person's a grifter now. It's like, maybe they are, but like, why even like have the argument? Like, it's, you don't really know, you know?
Yeah. I think the grifter thing in particular, it's like, okay, well, like I have a hard time with that just in general, because like when I started streaming, and about maybe 6 months or a year in, when I realized like, okay, like all of this is like performance based, like even your stuff, like you say, I'm not performing, blah, 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 blah. Like nobody puts out of their mind that there's an audience listening to this, and whether it's like conscious or unconscious, like we're all very acutely aware that there's an audience listening, and that impacts the way that conversations go.
Yeah.
And so like this idea of grifting, or like you're doing this for your audience or for money, it's like my knee-jerk reaction is to say like, well, we're all doing that to some extent. This isn't like a helpful critique. Like, how do you feel about that?
I mean, like, well, the real reason why it should be helpful is because if you could actually identify somebody as actually grifting, then their credibility is destroyed and you shouldn't listen to them, because you know that they're not making a good faith effort to deliver you correct information, or information they've tried to ascertain is correct or not. They're just trying to say whatever they need to get a paycheck, so you can write that person off.
Oh, okay. And in terms of the borderline bad faith thing, do you feel like that at all with the Serbs? I feel like I don't know if he's intentionally being an obstacle to conversations, or if he's like can't understand them, or I don't know what's going on with that guy.
I think Lance is just genuinely like really dumb. I don't even know if he's bad faith. I just think he's just really dumb, and he's just kind of there for the aesthetic, and it's kind of like cool and fun, and like that's it.
You don't imagine that he has the capacity to listen, and he's just like fucking something up in the execution of that, or?
No, because he doesn't make any effort. Like, this is what I look for, is like, where's the effort? Like, do you actually care or do you not? And if you care, you'll make an effort. It's the same thing with like relationships, right? Like if you know somebody making an effort to see somebody, meet somebody, do something, like if there's no effort being made, that's my best way. That's my only window into your soul, into your mind, is like your actions. And you know, that's going to determine how I assess your character, you know? So like when we get into arguments with Lance, where he's literally calling me, you know, like homophobic or levying really strong claims about stories, and he doesn't have the first bit of information about the story, I know you don't care about it that much, you know? You can shout and scream and do your little song and dance, but like if you actually cared, you would know something about this, and you don't know anything about it. So clearly you don't give that much a fuck. You care more about something else, whether it's the performance or the aesthetic or the followers or the clout or whatever. It's something different.
Okay. Well, I'll avoid getting you in any trouble with more streamers. I'm gonna bounce. It was fun talking to you, though.
Yeah. Wait. Oh shit! I just remembered you're in Romania. What the fuck time is it for you?
Systems.
It's 6 a.m.
Oh, so you just woke up a little bit ago and you're making breakfast.
Yeah, I woke up at I think 5, and then I started making brekkie. Oh, it's 7 a.m. here now, I think.
Wait, are you actually serious? I was memeing.
No, I did. Yeah, I woke up at 5, and then I started making breakfast.
Okay, never mind. That's good. I thought you were on a gamer schedule, so good job.
No, I'm trying to correct it. Hopefully I can start waking up at like 6 or 7, but I had to pull that back around. Oh, I think I asked in chat, but are you getting Back for Blood?
I don't know. What is this game?
It's like Left 4 Dead. I played it in the beta. It was really fun. Like, I miss Left 4 Dead a lot. Because
maybe
if you want to play it, I'd be down. It's fun content, I think, or better than League, maybe.
Okay, I'll think about it. Okay. Oh, that's the Left 4 Dead thing. Oh, I might actually.
Awesome.
Wait, when does it come out?
Another next week, like exactly like today, but next week, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay, good. So I won't be out of town. Yeah, I'll think about it.
Okay, well, just let me know.
Okay, have fun. Be careful.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye, bud. We bored him. We got him. We bored Booksmarts out of the call.
Oh man, my bad.
Oh fuck.
I had my mic muted.